ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यनिजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदम् श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। मन्मना भव मद्भक्तः मद्याजी मां नमस्कुरु मामे वैश्यसि युक्त्वैवम् आत्मानं मत्परायणः। So a description of a bhakta, well, a devotee who attains the goal of gaining Ishvara, gaining moksha through knowing the self, because Ishvara happens to be the self of all. So knowing the self is knowing Ishvara. Knowing Ishvara is gaining Ishvara. Self is already gained. Non-self is gained or not gained. But self is always gained. That self happens to be Ishvara. Well, so know the self. Is know the Ishvara. It's knowing the Ishvara. Knowing the Ishvara is gaining Ishvara. Sometimes they say reaching. Word Upanishad, that. Anyway. So, and in that, what are the characteristics? This is a very beautiful verse, which shows a characteristic of a bhakta. Two things we have already seen, and that is manmana bhavaha. Bhava, not bhavaha. Manmana bhava. May you lose yourself into me. That's how it is. Yourself, ahankara. What is that? What is addressed is ahankara, individual. You lose yourself into me. That's a bhakti. May you have a goal in your life as myself. We have seen that Manmana Bhava indicates a Purushartha Viveka. Yesterday we have seen it also. And then second thing is Mad Bhaktaha. May you devote yourself to me. Then that's a literal meaning. But then we saw also, may you devote yourself to knowing Ishvara. May you commit yourself to the knowledge of Ishvara. So that is the meaning. So that's the second characteristic. Third, which we have to see now, Madhyaji. Yaj dhatu means Deva Puja Sangati Karana Daneshu. So may you become one whose rituals, prayers, and other karmas all are offered unto me. Means all the actions are offered, prayer, ritual, everything. Means he should not gain any kind of karma phala? No, not at all. May you offer all your actions unto me for gaining one phala. Antakarana Shuddhi. Only for purification of the mind. Because already goal is set. Now Dharma Artha Kama has been devoured into moksha. Yesterday we saw. So he is not interested in any object of security, an object of pleasure, and he doesn't want to go to heaven, does not want to acquire punya. Then what for karma? Karma is meant only for Antakarana Shuddhi. This will answer a very prominent question, that if one does karma and one does not expect anything, how is it possible? And we also say it is not possible. It is not possible. If you do karma, some expectation is there. And that expectation is purification of one's mind. No, nothing else. So that is there. Nishkama karma, offering. Nishkama karma, no kamana. The karma itself will not arise. But this is the thing. No other means dharma, artha, moksha, dharma, artha, kama, etc. Out of that, nothing he wants. Anyway, and antakarana shuddhi will happen through the offering, then he will gain Ishvara. There is no doubt about it. That's a qualification, in fact. Because the obstacle has been taken care of. Antakarana shuddhi means the obstacle, the enemies. Kameshaha, Krodeshaha, Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha, Mahashano, Mahapapma, Vidhi Enam, Iha Vairinam, Trividam Narakasedam, Dvaram, Nashanam, Atmanaha, Kama, Krodas, Tathalobaha, Tasmadetat Trayam, Tyajet. So they have been taken care of. Anyway, then yesterday we also saw the definition of bhakti, etc. As I said, devotion is an condition of the mind, it's an emotion of the mind in which there is a recognition of Ishvara first. There is a reverence towards Ishvara. There is a surrender, love, offering, to Ishvara, altar of the Ishvara, etc. And so this emotion of the mind, this condition of the mind, basically, when it gets expressed, it takes the form of offering, to Ishvara. Meditating, meditating upon Ishvara and pursuing Ishvara. All the three are basically different forms. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Upasana Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Serving and offering oneself to Ishvara is called Karma Yoga. Same emotion gets expressed. Emotion is a spirit. And that action, particular action of offering, etc., is a form. We are going to talk about form and spirit. And so, serving and offering oneself to Ishvara is called Karma Yoga. Meditating upon Ishvara is called Upasana, and pursuit of Ishvara is called Jnana Yoga. So, devotion, bhakti is basically a common atmosphere in which all three disciplines are practiced. And surrender and offering, of oneself unto Ishvara is a attitude which is ever present in devotion. So it is the ahankara basically, the ego which separates the human being from Ishvara, and therefore, it is this ahankara which is offered ultimately, or surrender unto Ishvara and in the presence of this devotion. So all the way, in Karma Yoga there is an offering of ahankara. Upasana, of course, is an offering. The object of meditation, the culmination of upasana actually is the one in which the meditator and object of meditation, meditator in fact resolves into the object of meditation. That's a culmination. And, in Jnana Yoga, ahankara is falsified. So it's basically, ultimately, it's an offering of oneself into Ishvara. Because ahankara only is the one which separates a human being from Ishvara. And therefore you offer ahankara to Ishvara, in these three disciplines, then gain oneness with Ishvara. What is ahankara? It is nothing but this identification with this body, mind, sense complex of a real self. I'm saying like that. Real self means basically the Parameshvara. I am consciousness, Brahman. When I identify with this body, mind, sense complex, and there is a strong I sense in the body, that's called ahankara, a sense of individuality. And while removing this identification with this complex through knowledge, of course, and then definitely identifying oneself with oneself, would be the process of surrender and offering. And so, then one will know identity of oneself with Ishvara. Question. This is very beautiful to talk about. That in the atmosphere of devotion, and then all the three disciplines are practiced. But where is devotion? Where is devotion? I don't have a Swamiji an attitude of offering or surrender, etc. in my mind. So I don't have a bhakti at all. So if a spirit of devotion is not there, what to do? That's the question. To generate a devotion in the mind, an act of devotion is required. That we have to see. So action becomes, important because it produces a relevant emotion in your mind. If the action is not done, the emotion will disappear or won't arise at all. So there are actions that cause a particular emotion to manifest. So we need to discuss a form, action, and the spirit, the attitude. So if spirit, the attitude is not there, attitude of offering, surrender, etc. is not there to Ishvara, then act of devotion, act of surrender, act of offering, prayer, etc. is essential. And so for this form and spirit, we'll have to discuss a little bit. In India, we show some forms of respect. For example, we show respect for a person, for elders. How? When he comes, we get up. So this is purely a form. Getting up, it's an action actually. It's a form. And respect in the mind is a spirit. And so the form is getting up. But suppose if you give up all the forms of respect, then where is respect? If you give up the form of a friendship, where is friendship? Where is friendship? No, I have a Swamiji, I am very friendly to you, it is in your mind. But I don't express. I don't like to express. That's not correct. Anyway, so if you give up the form of let us say, shaking hands, it is one of the form of friendship. If you give up the form of a shaking hands, then where is friendship? And therefore, the friendship itself also disappears. So, well, people generally say if the spirit is, well, if the spirit is there, you don't require a form. Form is not necessary. But Pujya Swamiji always used to say, if the form is not there, the spirit will die. And if the form is not there, the spirit will not, you will not be able to discover the spirit also. So, if form alone is there, well, if the spirit is not there, spirit has to be instilled by a particular type of a form. And for that, I am going to give an example which Pujya Swamiji used to give. It's not my thing. But I'm just sharing you and reminding you, perhaps you might have forgotten. Swamiji used to give this example, how if a form can instill the spirit. Ultimately, we want to connect that act of devotion will generate devotion in your mind. That's what we want to convey. For that, Swamiji gives an example that one fellow came to me and said that, Swamiji, I hate this fellow in my office. And I asked him, when Swamiji used to narrate like this, that I asked that person, that why do you hate? He said, well, because he got a promotion. And afterwards he became too proud. And so I hate him, Swamiji. But I don't like to basically, this hatred because I attend your lectures. So I asked him, Swamiji said, that do you want to remove this hatred? The person said, yes, I want to remove the hatred. Then Swamiji said, I told him, give him a rose for 41 days. A rose daily for 41 days, well, should be given, etc. Then he said, Swamiji, I would like to, to follow your advice, but how can I give a flower to the person whom I hate? And what will he think of me? Well, then Swamiji said, well, do one thing. What? You first tell that person, Swamiji was telling to the person, he's a devotee, that you tell that person that I met this Swami D. And I told him also to the Swami that I hate you, really hate you. And then I told the Swami that I want to get rid of the hatred also because I don't want to live with the hatred. And then Swami asked me to give you a rose for 41 days. So please accept daily. Well, then Swami said, this person who is going to reject this flower. Because when you are so frank, even an enemy will accept a rose or flower. And when you will give a flower, on the first day, it could still be a problem for that person who is giving. So how to give a flower to this fellow whom I hate? That kind of attitude will be there in his mind. So, what he did was, he gave a flower, but he turned his head on the other side. And this thing continued for another next 4 days. But then, while giving this, on the 6th day, there was a little smile on the person who was giving a flower. Why? Because an act of giving a flower is an act of love in all the cultures. And in Indian culture, it is little extra. An act of giving a flower is an act of love in all the cultures. But in Indian culture, we have two more things. An act of giving a flower is an act of love, is an act of reverence, is an act of devotion. And we give it to some swamis also, bouquets and everything. Right? So, this action, please understand this. Any action will not instill love in you. A particular act will definitely instill. And that this is a particular act of offering a flower. And offering a flower to someone is never an act of hatred throughout the world. Throughout the world. So it has to instill the spirit. It has to instill the spirit. So, while giving flower is definitely not an act of hatred or dislike, etc., it is always an act of love, and therefore on the sixth day, a little smile appeared on the face of this devotee of Swamiji while giving a flower to that person. And that's how Swamiji said, I told him to give for 41 days because it is going to take time to instill the spirit. But what happened was, well, the form has already instilled the spirit. So if you keep giving, the spirit is discovered. And the 41 days I said that was redundant. Even after 10 days, the hatred can never be in the heart of that person. So what brought that spirit? Well, love is not something which you get by will, basically. And therefore, it's a condition. You discover yourself by particular act. And well, so you provide a condition which are conducive to discover the love in yourself. So an act of love will definitely generate a spirit of love. Same way, well, here also, an act of devotion, well, is as important as the spirit of devotion. Act of offering, act of prayer, act of surrender is as important as an spirit of devotion. If you want to instill the spirit of devotion, an act of devotion is necessary. So as it is as important as the spirit behind it, and without the act, well, there will not be a spirit. You cannot instill the spirit unless you are a jnani. The jnani's whole life is an act of prayer. No, Swamiji, he cannot pray to anything. There is nothing other than Ishvara. Ahankara itself is not there. What is there is just Ishvara for him. So whatever is done by him, there is no sense of a doership on his part, but whatever is done by him is just an act of prayer for that person. So, but for a person who is not a jnani, even if the spirit is absent, well, as long as the act of devotion, etc., is there, spirit will come. That's an answer of the question, how to gain a spirit of devotion in my mind. So, well, definitely it is, if as long as act of devotion is there, the spirit will definitely come. And you cannot perform an act of prayer basically without the spirit entering into it. It's a wonderful thing which Swamiji has discussed. It's because prayer basically is most voluntary action in which your free will is totally available, totally free. It's an action. Prayer is an action in which, well, the result is not immediate. Right? Result is not immediate. So the free will expresses itself in a fullest form. In all other actions, basically, you are motivated by one or other cause. Some phalam, basically. So when you see a go-getter, definitely you see a driven person. But if the same person, well, definitely when he simply falls back and pray, basically, and offer a prayer, it is definitely a voluntary. Because nobody can make another person pray. Even parents, they tell the children, children to close the eyes and pray, etc. and all that. But they cannot make them pray. So unless you voluntarily pray, you cannot, voluntarily you do this act of prayer, you cannot pray. Pujya Swamiji was giving his own example. That he said, when we were children, well, we were asked to do a a whole set of rituals before and after that Gayatri Japa. Basically, it takes around 50 minutes. And unless we did them, we would not get our coffee. So for a coffee's sake, we were driven to do them. And if we are doing, something just to please our mother, because father was not there. So if we are doing just something just to please our mother and get our morning coffee, it is only an action, not an act of prayer. But Swamiji admits that we picked up the spirit of devotion when we performed the act of prayer. So that's how Bhagavan says Madhyaji. Madhyaji means various actions that you do, form. Whether they are secular or scripturally enjoined. By Shruti, Smriti, etc. Please do all of them as an offering to me. Now the question is going to come that if one does a prayer, it's an act of offering, etc. But one does not do the prayer for the sake of offering. One does a prayer for the sake of gaining something. One performs a ritual for gaining something, in which there is no attitude of offering. And so we'll have to discuss that part also. So, generally, even though people basically perform those rituals and prayers, etc., and for the sake of gaining yoga kshema, that's what the word used by Bhagavan in this verse. Yoga kshema. Yoga kshema means what? Yoga means you want to acquire something which you don't have. And kshema means what you have acquired, you want to protect. Definitely ragadveshas are there. What you want to acquire because you like it. What you want to protect it because you like it. Right? So, of course, dvesha will be different. You want to get rid of something which you have. Or you want to keep away something which, you want to get rid of something which you dislike. Or you want to keep away the thing which you dislike. But ultimately, acquiring something which you don't have definitely involves a raga. Protecting something, kshema, which you have already, definitely involves ragadvesha. So basically, person performs rituals and prayers and etc. With not an attitude of offering oneself, but for gaining yoga kshema. If ahankara thinks that it takes care of itself, it takes care of yoga and kshema basically by becoming a devotee. Definitely you take help of Ishvara also. You are a devotee. If you want a certain yoga kshema in your life, keeping intact your ahankara, definitely, then you are a devotee because you take help of Ishvara. Ishvara is a means. Yesterday we discussed also. Ishvara is a means. You are not interested in Ishvara, you are interested in yoga kshema. In that case, you are a devotee, but you don't have a devotion. The attitude is not, spirit is not there. And definitely, therefore, rituals and prayers and everything, may not have an attitude of offering. If we are doing this act of offering, etc., we will have to clarify this thing also, that I am not doing this prayer for the sake of gaining some objects which I don't have called yoga, or want to protect something, but it is purely for the sake of antakarana shuddhi. This is to be very much clear. So this is called nishkama karma. Nishkama karma does not mean that I don't expect a result. Nobody can perform an action without expecting a result. It means I don't want any other result except antakarana shuddhi. But how can you say like that? Already he has done purushartha viveka. Man mana bhava. Yes, he has accepted the goal of moksha with a viveka that ultimately no one is interested in a dharma artha kama. Through dharma artha kama, what one wants is the freedom from seeking. No one wants to be a seeker throughout the life. But I don't know how to get rid of the seeking. That's a problem. When you seek objects of security, objects of pleasure, etc., you remain seeker throughout the life. Right? That's what is happening. I seek certain objects of pleasure. My seeking does not end. I seek further. I seek further. That's what is happening. And I want actually a freedom from seeking. And that freedom from seeking is moksha, basically. And so, yesterday we saw also a lot. So, basically, he has chosen a goal of moksha. And therefore, he is not going to do the prayers or other karmas, etc., rituals or any other thing, for the sake of gaining, for the fulfillment of some desires, etc. So, it's definitely not a sakama karma, it's a nishkama karma. So he is still interested in antakarana shuddhi. And for that sake, he is doing a prayer. So in his prayer, there is it's an act of offering, act of surrender, which will instill the spirit of offering later. Definitely. And antakarana shuddhi, when we say purification of mind, then this also question arises in our mind. What is this purification? Is it a washing through a detergent, etc., or what? It is purification of mind. The answer is, purification means not to be in the hands of raga-dvesha. These two words actually, raga-dvesha, they really cover all the problems, all the psychological problems. How? Well, if you analyze any problem, you have, whatever problem you have, it comes under raga-dvesha. Like, things did not happen as I wanted, so I have a problem. I say, things do not happen as I want, so I have a problem. And I don't see things will happen as I want, so I will have a problem. Right? So this indicates what? Things did not happen as I wanted. That want is nothing but raga-dvesha only. Want is raga-dvesha. How? Just see. What is raga? I just said also. I want to have something which I like. Raga. I want to protect something which I like. Raga. I want to keep away something which I dislike. Dvesha. I want to get rid of something which I dislike. Dvesha. In all the four sentences, want is common. Want is common. So all the psychological problems a human being has a basis in raga-dvesha. And therefore purification means basically not coming under the sway of raga-dvesha, means not coming under, making myself free, making my mind free from psychological issues. That's called purification of the mind. How to do that? Well, prayer is very important for that. So, one can achieve this purification of mind through the prayer. Prayer is inevitable. Because only a prayerful mind can accept all these situations, all these issues. Basically, prayer does imply a degree of a surrender and recognition of your limitations, helplessness to resolve all the issues. My resistance will bring a lot of problem. Even if, suppose I tell you one thing, in a family, some person is there which you dislike, and you want, because his personality, his way of speaking, his certain habits, whatever, you just dislike that person, or way of talking, you wanted to change the person. Same. So you wanted to change that person, you cannot. Nobody can change anybody. I am just reminding Pujya Swamiji's quotation. Nobody can change anybody. And if somebody wants to change, then nobody can stop it either. That's the thing. And therefore, basically, due to my ragadvesha, I wanted a person in a particular way, which we discussed. Things did not happen as I wanted, so I have a problem. Things do not happen as I want, problem. And things will not happen in future as I want, I have problem. It may be changing a person, or it may be some other agenda. Changing a situation. So, well, prayer basically implies a degree of a surrender and recognition of my limitations or helplessness also. If I don't pray, my helplessness in varieties of the situation leads to frustration. If I act upon my helplessness, well, there is no helplessness at all. If you take help, Pujya Swamiji's words, if you take help, you are not helpless. Take help of whom? You are limited. So you can't take help of another limited being. You surrender to Ishvara. So in a prayer, there is a recognition of Ishvara as a limitless also. So you basically, three things are there in a prayer. Basic prayer implies a degree of a surrender to the altar of Ishvara. Prayer implies a recognition of your helplessness, limitations. And prayer also is accompanied by the recognition of Ishvara as limitless. And so the act of devotion, makes this appreciation real. And so the attitude of surrender, if you keep on praying, the attitude of surrender becomes more and more real through the act of surrender, act of prayer. And then you can totally accept that all situations which are problem otherwise, you can totally accept the situations. Then, and you tell to yourself that you could do you could do only this much what you did, and you could not have done anything better. Perhaps in the order of the things, this is how it should have been. And so this keeps your mind sane, because ragadveshas are not able to definitely create an obstacle in your mind. And so the sanest person is the one who understands his or her limitation, helplessness, as well as his virtues also. The person who understands basically his or her, who understands, who accepts only one's virtues, who understands only one's own virtues, is not the sanest. Basically, one who understands one's own virtues and helplessness or limitation is a sanest person. And so when we appreciate, not only our helplessness, but also Ishvara is the one who is limitless, I can take help of him, our sanity is complete. This is the mind ready for self-knowledge. We call it as a abiding mind. And so the whole life becomes an expression of a prayer. More the prayer, more the attitude of surrender, etc., becomes real in his life. The act of surrender instills the spirit of surrender. And definitely in that, these likes and dislikes do not create obstacles. So prayer is inevitable ultimately to bring a mental purification. So when the mind is settled like this, well, it can inquire properly. Self-inquiry, etc. So Bhagavan here is talking about, Madhyaji Bhagavan says. So Bhagavan is talking about a person who is interested in moksha and he is doing the karma for Antakaran Shuddhi. Other people are doing karma, prayer, etc., rituals, they are also doing. But well, definitely that is for yoga and kshema. You want only moksha. You are not interested in dharma, artha and kama, etc. And therefore you renounce the result of an action as though you have renounced. So you play a role, perform all your duties, and you don't, worry about this. You don't work for, rather. You don't pray for, this dharma, artha and kama. You work for Antakaran Shuddhi. So Bhagavan says here, whatever you do, Madhyaji, whatever you offer to me, just do it for my sake. Let it go to Ishvara. And it's our expression of a devotion to Ishvara. Definitely you will gain Antakaran Shuddhi as a grace of Ishvara. In fact, in the act of offering itself, there is Antakaran Shuddhi. Because my offering is not going to make Ishvara rich. My act of offering is enriching me. Because basically I am getting in that spirit of devotion, spirit of offering more and more. More I pray, more that attitude of surrender, attitude of offering, I am getting more and more that attitude. And therefore, my offering is not going to make Ishvara rich. My attitude of offering definitely, act of offering rather, definitely enriches me. And then the result of karma, etc. will come, is taken as a prasada. This is the meaning of word Madhyaji. Madhyaji. In which my prayers and other karmas, maybe even karmas of Shruti, Smriti, etc., Yajna, Puja, or even secular karmas, etc., all are done with the attitude of offering. Then Bhagavan says, Mam Namaskuru. Mam Namaskuru. Now, so, Namaskuru, may you surrender to me. Namaskara means surrender. And here Kuru is there. And Kuru indicates, the word Kuru indicates an action. So, act of surrender. So basically here, now we will have to take a meaning little differently here. So all that I do conforming to dharma. Because dharma also is a manifestation of Ishvara. Then what do I surrender? I surrender my likes and dislikes to Ishvara. How? The human being is given a choice. He has a free will. And he can, his choice is, he can choose. He has no choice over choices. That's better. He has no choice over choosing. He has to choose. Absolute freedom. And when such an absolute freedom is there, the possibility of abusing freedom also will be there. Right? Possibility of abusing freedom also will be there. And and how he abuses the freedom? He can temper upon somebody's rights. He can harm other person. He can hurt other person. He can take advantage of somebody's weakness. He can take advantage of somebody's goodness also. All this is possible. It is all abuse of freedom. And if I am programmed like animals, then I will not be blamed. But I have free will. I have a choice not to temper upon somebody's rights. I have a choice not to exploit others. I have a choice not to harm others. And therefore, when absolute freedom is there, you should be told also how to exercise your freedom. There is something called right and wrong, called dharma and adharma. Means if you do this, it's a right choice of freedom. If you do this, it's a wrong choice, because you have a choice. And so, this dharma, as a person to make choices, well, I need to have a manual of a right and wrong. But we see the manual is not given after we are born. Free will is given. Freedom is given total freedom. But the breaks are not given. No, it's not possible. It will be a defect in the creation. So where the free will is there, where the freedom is there itself on the other side, the manual is there. You know what is right and what is wrong. Everyone is born with the manual of dharma and adharma. Everyone knows. You know how to speak. No educational institute has taught you that, well, you should not harm others and you should speak truth and you should be honest and etc. We should not temper upon somebody's rights, etc. Dharma Shastra may codify, that's a different thing, but you are born with. In fact, that is the value you have. That is the value every human being has. That's how it's called universal. And it should be universal also. Because what is right should be right for you. Because when I choose something, you are going to be affected. Suppose if I choose to speak lie, I am affected, let us keep it aside. But my speaking of lie may affect you. It will affect you. My speaking, speaking truth will definitely affect you. And therefore, what is right should be right for you. Both of you should choose from this same universal structure. I also speak truth and you also speak truth. Both of us know that this is the right thing. Then there is a harmony. I speak truth. My choice is based on that. You speak lie, suppose. There is a disharmony. I am honest. That's the right thing to do. I know it also that you should be honest to me. What I expect from others, I am expected to do the same to others. And this is not taught by anybody. No educational institution has taught this. You should be honest to me. I have never learned in a college or have been anywhere. This I know. Everyone should be honest to me. Everyone should speak truth to me. Nobody should lie to me. This all I know. Nobody should harm to me. Nobody should exploit me. I am born with this. And therefore I am expected to do the same to others. When I do the same to others, there is a harmony within and without. So a dharmic person, a religious person who follows this dharma, universal value, is a spontaneous person. He has no conflicts. No, Swamiji, that's not correct. Lots of conflicts. Right? Yeah, because our free will is in the hands of two extremists, Raga Dvesha. They want their fulfillment through free will. Because you are going to act upon through your free will. And through that action, they want a fulfillment. And therefore there is a conflict between Raga Dvesha and the universal structure. Both are there. I give you an example, simple example. Like, I have an issue of a cholesterol. It's not, but I think. I have a high cholesterol. Then what is the right thing to do? They say, take a walk. I am supposed to take a walk is a right thing, dharma. I don't like it. What I am not supposed to do, that I like. Doctor says, don't take fried things. I always tell my wife that, well, every second day, make something bhajis and badais and... What I am not supposed to do, I like. what I'm supposed to do, I don't like. Conflict. So likes and dislikes basically come in the way of dharma. So initially when your free will take resort to dharma, this likes and dislike will definitely create obstacles. That's a conflict. But knowing this, that dharma is a manifestation of Ishvara, you definitely exercise your free will in tandem with that structure, in harmony with the Ishvara. You are a karma yogi, right? You have surrendered to not your likes and dislikes, but surrendered to dharma, Ishvara. That is what is told here. Surrender to me, namaskuru. So may you offer your likes and dislikes unto my altar. This is what is being meant here. And so, namaskaram, namaskuru, mam namaskuru means you surrender your personal likes and dislikes unto me, who is in the form of dharma. Dharma is a manifestation of Ishvara, etc. So this is how manmana bhava, madbhaktaha, madhyaji, mam namaskuru. And Bhagavan says, evam atmanam yuktva. Atmanam. Here atmanam doesn't mean atma, mind. So having prepared yourself, your mind in this way, so when you are doing such actions, well, it will bring about antakarana shuddhi. And Shankaracharya says, well, in this way your mind will be composed, focused. Ragadveshas will definitely brings lot of, agitation in the mind. When they are being taken care of, definitely your mind is now composed. I said abiding mind, focused mind. So, Bhashyakara says samadhaya kritva. So basically, your mind will be focused. You surrender unto Ishvara. And so on here, mind is, of course, of this person, mind is focused on Ishvara. Mind can be focused on anything, but here we are talking about this. Then what will happen? Mat parayana. Well, the one for whom I, the Ishvara, remains the goal. Oh, Swamiji, that was manmana. No, manmana means a purushartha viveka. He has done viveka and now set the goal as a moksha or Ishvara. But now here this person is a focused. He wants just Ishvara alone. So mat parayana means the one for whom I, the Ishvara, am the goal. For him, the ultimate end, the only end is now Parameshvara. All because he is manmana, and then madbhaktaha, madhyaji, and mam namaskuru, surrendered to him. He has taken refuge in him, and that being so, Bhagavan says, well, mam eva eshyasi. Well, he will go to me alone. He will gain me alone. Reaching in terms of gaining in terms of knowing. Nothing else. So, knowing Ishvara as the very self is a gaining Ishvara. So, mameva eshyasi. It's such in dhatu, in gatau. So, he will reach to me. He will reach to me, he will gain Ishvara. He will gain Ishvara means he knows Ishvara. Because Bhagavan says, aham sarvesham bhutanam atma. So, reaching the Lord is reaching yourself. Because Ishvara is the Atma of all the beings. And this is how we have completed these words. Mameva eshyasi. Ultimately, he will gain me. He will gain moksha. Ishvara is moksha. Not knowing Brahman, moksha will happen. Brahman is moksha, free. Free from the effect of time, place and any object limitation. No kind of limitation. That is the nature of Brahman. And so that Brahman happens to be the self. There is no Brahman other than the self. There is no Brahman other than the self. If other than the self, well, definitely it is not Brahman. If self happens to be, different from Brahman, then Brahman is not Brahman. Yeah. Because everyone will say, Brahman is different from me. Brahman is different from me. Then Brahman becomes chota. Brahman means limitless. He doesn't remain limitless. So there is no Brahman other than the self, and he knows this now. He knows the self as Parameshwara. He gains Parameshwara. That's what it is. So reaching the Lord is reaching oneself, because Ishvara is the Atma of all the beings. And all this goes along with the assurance of Ishvara in this chapter. Kaunteya pratijanihi val name bhakta pranashyati. Well, Kaunteya pratijanihi. Bhagavan says, you will definitely take an assurance. I mean, you give assurance, rather, I should say. You give assurance on my behalf. What? Name bhakta pranashyati. Well, my devotees never get destroyed. Means, basically, a bhakta who comes to know oneself as a Ishvara, he is not going to get destroyed. He is Brahman. And one who tries to know, one who is in the process of knowing Ishvara also, well, he is never going to get destroyed. He will gain moksha. That's the responsibility of Ishvara. So we should not worry that what will happen to us, etc. We definitely, name bhaktaha pranashyati. Well, my bhaktas, my devotees, definitely do not get destroyed. One who knows definitely is not getting destroyed. And one who is in the process of knowing also, well, is not going to get destroyed. So this is how, this is the last verse in this chapter. And with this, we have completed this 3 days talk on this a particular verse, 34th verse of 9th chapter. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.